Ladies, let me start by saying this: relationships aren't about control, they're about influence. And influence comes from who you are, not what you demand. See, there's this fundamental truth I've seen over and over again in thousands of relationships I've coached. Men don't leave a woman who makes them feel alive, appreciated, and respected. They don't. Why? Because those feelings are addictive. Embrace your authentic self. First things first, you've got to step into your power. Stop trying to be someone you're not just to please him. Men are drawn to women who are comfortable in their own skin because authenticity breeds trust. And trust is the foundation of every deep connection. When you're real, you give him permission to be real too. Master emotional intelligence. Ladies, emotions are powerful, yours and his. Emotional intelligence means you understand not only what you're feeling, but also how to navigate his emotions without reacting impulsively. If you can master this, you become someone he feels safe opening up to. And let me tell you this, a man who feels safe with you will always return to you. Create a space of peace and inspiration. Think about this: the world out there is chaotic, competitive, and often brutal for men. When he comes to you, he's not just looking for romance, he's looking for peace. If you can create an environment where he feels inspired, encouraged, and supported, he'll crave your presence like oxygen. Celebrate and respect his masculine energy. One of the deepest human needs is to feel significant, to feel like we matter. And men in particular need to feel respected. When you acknowledge his efforts, celebrate his victories, big or small, and respect his vision, he feels like he can conquer anything with you by his side. That's a bond most men will never willingly walk away from. Maintain your independence and purpose. Listen carefully: neediness repels while passion attracts. Men are drawn to women who have their own goals, dreams, and passions because it shows strength. Don't lose yourself in the relationship, evolve with it. When you maintain your independence, you remain that intriguing, fascinating woman he fell for in the first place. Communicate with grace and clarity. Lastly, communication is everything. Speak your truth, set your boundaries, and do it with respect and grace. Men aren't mind readers, they need clarity. But clarity without nagging, without blame, and without fear of rejection. When you communicate like this, you build trust, and trust keeps him coming back every single time. Conclusion. So here's the bottom line: if you want men to return to you again and again, it's not about playing games or being someone you're not. It's about stepping into your power, understanding your worth, and creating a connection built on authenticity, trust, and mutual respect. You're not just a woman, you're a force of nature. Own that. Live it. And I promise you, the right man won't just return, he'll stay. Now go out there and create a connection that lasts. You've got this. Let me tell you something right now. Authenticity isn't just a buzzword. It's the foundation of every meaningful connection. And when it comes to attracting and keeping a man, it's non-negotiable. See, too many people, men and women alike, fall into the trap of becoming a version of themselves they think the other person wants. You know what I'm talking about. You start adjusting your behavior, suppressing your opinions, laughing at jokes you don't find funny, or even pretending to enjoy things just to gain approval. But here's the truth: a relationship built on pretense is destined to crumble because no one can sustain a facade forever. Authenticity is magnetic because it signals confidence, self-worth, and most importantly, security. And listen closely: security is unbelievably attractive. When a man senses that you're not afraid to be yourself, not afraid to share your thoughts, your quirks, your passions, and even your flaws, it creates a dynamic where he feels he can let down his guard too. See, men are often carrying emotional armor. They've been conditioned to suppress vulnerability, to always look strong, to never show weakness. But when a woman steps into her authentic self, when she stops worrying about being enough and just is, she creates a space where he feels safe to do the same. Now, being authentic doesn't mean oversharing every thought that crosses your mind or being blunt to the point of rudeness. No, it means having the courage to honor your values, your feelings, and your boundaries. It means saying, "This is who I am. Take it or leave it." And let me tell you something: a high-value man will always take it. He'll see your courage, your honesty, and your self-assurance, and he'll be drawn to it like a moth to a flame. Why? Because authenticity is rare in a world full of masks and performances. But let's go deeper here. Being authentic isn't just about external behavior. It's about an internal alignment. It's about asking yourself, who am I? What do I want? What do I value? Because if you don't know the answers to these questions, you'll find yourself drifting in every relationship, bending and molding yourself to fit someone else's expectations. And let me tell you, nothing kills attraction faster than inauthenticity. You'll start feeling resentful, unfulfilled, and eventually you'll lose yourself completely. And let me be clear, that's not his fault. That's your responsibility to own. See, confidence doesn't come from pretending to be perfect. It comes from embracing your imperfections, owning your story, and showing up as yourself anyway. Have you ever noticed how some women just radiate presence? They walk into a room and people can't take their eyes off them, not because of their looks, but because of their energy. That's the power of authenticity. It's not something you fake, it's something you become. And men, they're not as complicated as we sometimes make them out to be. At their core, they crave a woman who is real. They want someone who laughs genuinely, who speaks her truth with kindness, and who isn't afraid to be vulnerable without losing her strength. Vulnerability, by the way, isn't weakness, it's courage in its purest form. And when a man sees a woman who's comfortable in her own skin, it makes him want to step up, to protect that space, to invest in that connection. But here's the deal: authenticity requires risk. It requires the willingness to be seen fully, flaws and all, without any guarantee of acceptance. And I know that's terrifying. But the alternative? Living in constant fear, constantly walking on eggshells, and ultimately attracting men who are more in love with the idea of you than the real you. That's not a life worth living, and it's certainly not a relationship worth having. So ask yourself this right now: are you showing up as the real you in your relationships, or are you putting on a performance? Are you speaking your truth, or are you silencing yourself out of fear? Are you shining your light, or are you dimming it to make someone else feel comfortable? Because the truth is, when you embrace your authentic self, when you stand tall in your uniqueness, you don't chase men, you attract them. And not just any men, but the right kind of men. The kind of men who see your value, honor your truth, and choose you not because you're playing a role, but because you're being you. So don't shrink. Don't apologize for being too much or not enough. Own your space, own your truth, and watch how the world and the right man responds. Because authenticity isn't just attractive, it's irresistible. And it starts with you. Emotions are one of the most powerful forces in human relationships. They can build bridges of connection or create walls of separation. If you want to create a relationship where a man feels deeply connected to you, you need to master the art of emotional intelligence. Now, let's get one thing straight: emotional intelligence isn't about suppressing your feelings or avoiding confrontation. It's about understanding your emotions, managing them, and using them to build a deeper bond rather than letting them sabotage the connection you're trying to create. Most people operate on autopilot when it comes to their emotions. They react instead of respond. They get triggered by something their partner says or does, and instead of pausing and reflecting, they lash out, withdraw, or shut down. And here's the problem with that: when emotions are unmanaged, they create chaos. They erode trust. They make the other person feel unsafe to share their own feelings because they're afraid of the explosion or the icy silence that might follow. When you master emotional intelligence, you become someone he can trust with his own emotions. Think about it: men are often conditioned from a young age to suppress their feelings. They're told, man up, don't cry, or be strong. So when they encounter a woman who not only understands her own emotions, but also creates space for him to express his, it feels like a breath of fresh air. It's rare, and it's incredibly powerful. But emotional intelligence starts with you. It starts with recognizing your own emotional patterns. When you feel anger rising, do you lash out? When you feel hurt, do you withdraw and go silent? Or do you pause, breathe, and ask yourself, what am I really feeling right now and why? Because here's the thing: most emotional reactions aren't about the surface issue. They're about something deeper. Maybe you felt ignored, maybe you felt unimportant, or maybe an old wound got triggered. But if you don't take the time to identify what's really going on, you'll end up reacting to the symptom instead of addressing the cause. And let me tell you something important: emotional intelligence doesn't mean you never get upset or frustrated. It doesn't mean you become a robot. It means you learn to communicate those feelings in a way that builds connection instead of destroying it. Saying, I'm hurt because I felt unheard when you said that, is very different from shouting, you never listened to me. One invites understanding, the other creates defensiveness. Now let's talk about attuning to his emotions. Emotional intelligence isn't just about managing your own feelings, it's about recognizing and responding to his. Men aren't always going to spell out how they feel. Sometimes they'll withdraw, get quiet, or distract themselves with work or hobbies. And here's where your emotional intelligence becomes a superpower. Instead of taking his withdrawal personally, you recognize it for what it is, a sign that something deeper is going on. And instead of demanding answers or pushing him to talk when he's not ready, you create a space of openness and safety. Sometimes it looks like saying, hey, I notice you've been quiet. I'm here if you need to talk. When you show up like that, calm, understanding, and patient, you become a source of emotional safety for him. And let me tell you something, men crave emotional safety, even if they won't admit it out loud. They want to feel like they can let their guard down without being judged, criticized, or rejected. But emotional intelligence isn't about becoming his therapist. It's not your job to fix him or carry his emotional burdens. It's about creating a dynamic where both of you feel safe to share openly and honestly without fear of judgment or retaliation. And that only happens when you've mastered your own emotional landscape first. The truth is, emotionally intelligent women are unforgettable because they offer something rare in today's world, a relationship where communication feels easy, where vulnerability is celebrated, and where emotional safety is the norm, not the exception. And when a man experiences that, he won't just return to you, he'll gravitate toward you. He'll seek your presence. Because in a world full of emotional chaos, you've become his anchor. So here's the challenge: start paying attention to your emotions. Start noticing your triggers. Start communicating your feelings with clarity and grace instead of blame or avoidance. And most importantly, start attuning yourself to the emotional undercurrents in your relationship. Because when you master emotional intelligence, you don't just create attraction, you create connection. And connection is what keeps people coming back over and over again. Let me tell you something foundational about human nature. Every single one of us, man or woman, is searching for a sense of peace, a space where we can exhale, where we can let our guard down and just be. In a world that's constantly demanding, criticizing, and pulling us in 1,000 directions, peace has become one of the rarest and most valuable things you can offer someone. And when a man finds that space in you, when he feels like being around you brings him a sense of calm and inspiration rather than stress and tension, he will always return to you. You see, men are wired to face challenges. The world often expects them to perform, provide, and protect at all costs. Whether it's their career, finances, family, or personal goals, there's always pressure coming from somewhere. And many men carry that pressure silently. They don't talk about it. They don't always know how to process it. But when they're around a woman who knows how to create a space of peace, of refuge, really, it's like stepping into sunlight after being in a storm. Now, let me be clear, creating a space of peace doesn't mean becoming a doormat or constantly suppressing your feelings just to keep the peace. That's not peace, that's quiet resentment. True peace in a relationship comes from emotional maturity, self-awareness, and a conscious choice to build an environment where both of you feel understood, respected, and valued. Peace is about how you respond when there's tension. It's about how you handle disagreements. It's about your energy when he walks into the room after a long day. Are you someone who brings warmth, encouragement, and a sense of calm? Or are you adding to the chaos he's already trying to escape from? Because let me tell you, if a man associates being around you with stress, tension, and constant confrontation, he's going to start pulling away. Not because he doesn't care about you, but because he's wired to protect his own emotional survival. But here's the beautiful part: peace doesn't mean perfection. It doesn't mean you never have disagreements or that you always have to be cheerful. It means that even in those moments of tension or conflict, you handle them with grace. You communicate instead of criticize. You seek to understand instead of just being understood. You create an emotional environment where problems are solved together rather than letting them drive a wedge between you. And let's not forget inspiration. Peace isn't just about calmness, it's also about energy. When you inspire a man, you remind him of his potential. You become a mirror reflecting back the best version of himself. That doesn't mean you're constantly giving pep talks or trying to fix him. Sometimes inspiration comes from simply believing in him when he's doubting himself. It's in the way you acknowledge his hard work, celebrate his victories, and stand by him when he's struggling. It's in the way your own passion for life shines through, because let me tell you, a woman who's passionate about her own life is incredibly inspiring to a man. But let me also address a common misconception. Creating peace and inspiration isn't about sacrificing your own needs or suppressing your voice. It's about balance. It's about showing up with a sense of emotional strength and self-assurance that says, I'm here for you, but I'm also here for myself. Because if you drain yourself completely trying to create peace for someone else, you'll end up resentful, exhausted, and disconnected from your own joy. And no man wants that, because deep down, every man wants a woman who's full of life. When you create a space of peace and inspiration, you become a sanctuary for him. Not because you're trying to be, but because your energy naturally radiates calm and positivity. It's in the way you listen when he talks about his struggles. It's in the way you don't belittle his dreams, no matter how big or small they seem. It's in the way you respond with patience instead of irritation when he's having an off day. And you know what happens when a man feels that? He starts associating you with those feelings of safety, warmth, and inspiration. He starts craving your presence because it feels good, it feels right. And let me tell you something, people don't walk away from places where they feel truly seen, deeply respected, and fully accepted. But here's the catch, you can't fake this. You can't pretend to be peaceful and calm if you're full of chaos and resentment on the inside. True peace starts within you. It starts with knowing how to manage your own stress, your own triggers, and your own emotions. It starts with creating peace in your own life so that you can naturally share it with others. So ask yourself this, what kind of emotional environment am I creating in my relationship? Is it one of peace and inspiration, or is it one of constant tension and uncertainty? Because the truth is, men don't just fall in love with a woman, they fall in love with how they feel when they're around her. And if you can become a source of genuine peace and inspiration in his life, you won't just have his attention, you'll have his heart. And trust me, he'll always find his way back to that space because it's a feeling too rare and too valuable to let go. One of the deepest needs wired into every man is the need to feel respected, valued, and significant. It's not just a preference, it's a fundamental part of his masculine identity. Men are often driven by a desire to conquer, to provide, to protect, and to feel like their contributions are noticed and appreciated. When a man feels respected by a woman, it doesn't just stroke his ego, it validates his purpose. It gives him a sense of pride and fulfillment that very few things in life can offer. And let me tell you this, a man will always return to the space where he feels respected, valued, and celebrated for who he is and what he brings to the table. But let me make this clear, respect isn't about blind submission. It's not about ignoring his flaws or pretending he's perfect. No man is perfect. True respect is about acknowledging his strengths, recognizing his efforts, and communicating in a way that doesn't belittle or demean him, even when you're frustrated or disappointed. Because the truth is, men shut down in the face of disrespect. They withdraw, they stop communicating, they start creating distance, not always because they're angry, but because feeling disrespected chips away at their very identity. You see, men thrive in an environment where they feel like they're making a difference, where their presence matters and where their efforts are acknowledged. This doesn't mean you have to praise every little thing he does, but it does mean you should be intentional about showing appreciation. If he fixes something around the house, notice it. If he works long hours to provide, acknowledge it. If he shares a dream or an ambition with you, encourage it. And here's the key, do it sincerely. Men can sense when your words are hollow, just as they can feel the depth of genuine appreciation. But respect isn't just about words, it's about actions. It's about the way you communicate with him, especially during conflict. You can disagree with a man and still respect him. You can be frustrated with him and still communicate in a way that preserves his dignity. Rolling your eyes, using sarcasm, or belittling his opinions might seem harmless in the moment, but they chip away at the trust and connection between you. And over time, that damage accumulates. Respect also means trusting his decisions. Now, this doesn't mean you follow him blindly or silence your own voice. A healthy relationship is a partnership. But if you're constantly questioning his every choice, if you're always assuming he'll fail, or if you're micromanaging every move he makes, he'll start to feel like you don't believe in him. And let me tell you this, a man who feels like his woman doesn't believe in him will stop showing up as his best self. Not because he doesn't care, but because the energy to keep proving himself becomes exhausting. Now let's talk about celebrating his masculine energy. Masculine and feminine energies are complementary. They're designed to balance each other. When a man feels free to express his masculine side, to protect, to lead, to provide, and when that energy is met with respect and appreciation rather than resistance or criticism, it creates an incredibly powerful bond. But here's the thing, masculinity doesn't always look like toughness or stoicism. Sometimes it looks like vulnerability. Sometimes it looks like admitting failure. And in those moments, respect is even more critical. When a man opens up to you about his fears or insecurities, how you respond will either make him feel safe or make him regret ever sharing. Respect also means understanding his unique love language. Some men express love through acts of service, others through words of affirmation, others through quality time or physical touch. Pay attention to how he expresses love, and more importantly, how he receives love. Because respect is also about meeting him where he is, not where you expect him to be. And here's the most important point: respect isn't something you give only when he's earned it. It's a mindset you live. It's a way of showing up in the relationship consistently, not just when things are easy. It's about building a culture of mutual respect, where both of you feel valued, seen, and appreciated for who you are, not just for what you do. But respect isn't one-sided. A truly healthy relationship requires mutual respect, where both of you honor each other's strengths, acknowledge each other's contributions, and create space for each other to grow. You can't control how he shows up, but you can control how you show up. And when you consistently show respect through your words, your tone, your actions, you set a standard for how you expect to be treated in return. At the end of the day, men are simple in this regard. They want to feel like their efforts matter, like their presence makes a difference, and like they're seen and appreciated for who they are. And let me tell you this, when a man feels truly respected by you, he doesn't just return, he stays. He invests, he builds, because respect isn't just a fleeting emotion, it's the foundation of trust, love, and long-term connection. And that foundation, once built, is something every man will fight to protect. There's something deeply magnetic about a woman who knows her worth, who carries herself with confidence, and who refuses to settle for less than she deserves. It's not arrogance, it's a quiet, unshakable understanding of her value. And let me tell you something, a woman who knows her worth becomes unforgettable. She doesn't have to beg for attention, she doesn't have to chase love. And she doesn't have to lower her standards just to keep someone around. Instead, she naturally commands respect, admiration, and commitment from the people in her life, especially from men. See, many people confuse self-worth with being demanding or overly rigid, but that's not what we're talking about here. A woman who knows her worth isn't trying to control a man, she's simply unwilling to lose herself in the process of trying to keep him. She understands that her happiness, her peace, and her well-being are her own responsibility. And because of that, she doesn't tolerate half-hearted efforts, disrespect, or inconsistency. Not because she's playing hard to get, but because she knows she deserves more. Now, let me share something important a man can sense whether or not a woman knows her worth. It's in the way she speaks, the way she carries herself, and the way she responds to his behavior. A woman who knows her worth doesn't need constant validation from a man to feel secure. She doesn't panic when he pulls back for a moment, and she doesn't chase after him begging for his attention. Why? Because she's anchored in her own value. She knows that if someone can't see her worth, that's not her loss, it's theirs. But here's the kicker, knowing your worth isn't just about saying you know it. It's about showing it through your actions. It's about setting boundaries, and here's the tough part, enforcing them. Boundaries aren't walls you put up to keep people out. They're gates you build to protect your peace and let the right people in. A woman who knows her worth doesn't just set boundaries, she stands by them. She doesn't waver when someone tries to test them, because she understands that every time she allows someone to cross a line, she's teaching them that it's okay to do so. But this isn't about being cold or distant. It's about being warm, loving, and kind without sacrificing yourself. It's about being able to say, I love you, but I love myself too. And let me tell you, a man respects a woman who can do that. Because deep down, men don't want someone who's endlessly accommodating, someone who sacrifices their identity just to keep them comfortable. No. They want a partner, someone who challenges them, who inspires them, and who reminds them of their own potential just by the way she carries herself. And let's not forget, a woman who knows her worth also invests in herself. She takes care of her mind, her body, and her spirit, not to impress anyone else, but because she knows she deserves to feel her best. She pursues her passions, she builds her dreams, and she doesn't wait for someone else to give her permission to live fully. That kind of energy, it's electric, it's irresistible, because nothing is more attractive than someone who's genuinely in love with their own life. But here's where it gets real. Knowing your worth also means being willing to walk away. And this is the part that scares most people, because walking away requires courage. It requires you to face uncertainty, to face the fear of being alone, and to trust that something better is out there. But let me tell you something, every time you walk away from something or someone that doesn't honor your worth, you're making space for something better to come into your life. See, a man might not always say it out loud, but he feels it when a woman knows her worth. It shifts the dynamic entirely. It inspires him to show up as the best version of himself because he knows she won't settle for less. It's not about ultimatums, it's about standards. And when a man recognizes that he's with a woman who values herself, he respects her more. He admires her more. And most importantly, he chooses her not out of obligation, but out of desire. But here's the most beautiful part. A woman who knows her worth doesn't just change her relationships, she changes herself. She becomes someone who radiates self-respect, self-love, and self-assurance in every area of her life. And that kind of energy doesn't just attract the right man, it attracts the right everything. Opportunities, friendships, and experiences start aligning with her energy because she's no longer settling for less in any area of her life. So let me ask you, are you showing up as a woman who knows her worth? Are you setting boundaries and standing by them? Are you investing in yourself and living your life fully with or without someone by your side? Because when you truly embrace your worth, you don't have to chase love. Love finds you, respect follows you, and the right man, he doesn't just return to you, he stays, he commits, and he cherishes you because he knows that a woman like you is one in a million. Let me tell you something fundamental about human connection. People, especially men, are drawn to authenticity. In a world filled with filters, facades, and highlight reels, genuine connection has become one of the rarest and most valuable things you can offer. Men don't just fall for appearances or surface-level charm, they fall for realness. They fall for the woman who isn't afraid to show her true self, who speaks from the heart, and who creates a space where vulnerability isn't just allowed, it's celebrated. Authenticity isn't about being perfect. In fact, it's the opposite. It's about being real, even when it's uncomfortable. It's about having the courage to be seen for who you truly are, flaws, quirks, and all. And let me tell you, men feel this. They can sense when you're being genuine versus when you're performing. They know when your words come from a place of sincerity versus when they're just part of a script you think they want to hear. And here's the truth, no man stays deeply connected to a woman who's wearing a mask. But let's talk about what authenticity really looks like. First, it's about being honest, not just with him, but with yourself. It means knowing what you want, what you need, and what you value, and being unafraid to communicate those things. It means saying, this is who I am, this is what I believe, and this is what matters to me. And here's the magic of it. When you show up authentically, you give him permission to do the same. You create a space where both of you can let your guards down, where both of you can be messy, imperfect, and human without fear of judgment or rejection. Authenticity also means embracing your emotions and expressing them in a healthy way. Now, I'm not talking about emotional outbursts or dumping every frustration on him. I'm talking about owning your feelings, understanding them, and communicating them from a place of clarity rather than chaos. For example, saying, I feel hurt when this happens is very different from saying, you always do this one invites connection. The other builds walls. Authentic communication isn't about winning arguments, it's about building bridges. And let me tell you, this vulnerability is a huge part of authenticity. But vulnerability requires courage. It means being willing to share your fears, your dreams, your insecurities, and using your struggles without letting the fear of rejection silence you. And here's where many people get it wrong. Vulnerability isn't weakness. In fact, it's one of the greatest displays of strength. When you let a man see the real you, not just the polished, Instagram-ready version of you, but the raw you, you create a bond that's nearly unbreakable. Because true intimacy isn't built in moments of perfection, it's built in those moments of raw honesty and shared humanity. But here's the thing, authenticity isn't just about how you interact with him, it's about how you interact with yourself. Are you living in alignment with your values? Are you showing up in your life as the person you truly want to be? Or are you constantly molding yourself to fit someone else's expectations? Because let me tell you, a man can sense when a woman is living out of alignment with herself. It creates an invisible tension in the relationship because deep down, neither of you feels truly connected to the real version of each other. Authenticity also means letting go of the fear of losing him. And I know that's a tough one. But when you're authentic, when you're fully yourself, you understand that the right man will stay not because you're perfect, but because you're real. He'll stay because he feels something with you that he can't find anywhere else, genuine connection. And let me tell you, men don't walk away from a connection that feels that real. that's safe, and that deeply fulfilling. But authenticity isn't just about vulnerability, it's also about consistency. It's about showing up as the same person in your highs and your lows. It's about not pretending to be okay when you're not, and not pretending to be someone you're not just to keep him interested. Because here's the deal, if you have to pretend to keep someone, you'll have to keep pretending to keep them. And that's not sustainable. Now let's address a key truth. Being authentic might mean some people walk away. And that's okay. Because the people who can't handle your authenticity were never meant to stay. The right man, though, he won't just stay, he'll choose you again and again because he knows that what he's found in you is rare. When you embrace authenticity, you become magnetic, not because you're trying to be, but because realness is irresistible. It's the foundation of trust, intimacy, and emotional safety. It's the difference between a surface-level relationship that fades over time and a deeply rooted connection that grows stronger with every passing day. So here's the bottom line. Authenticity isn't about being perfect, it's about being true. It's about being unafraid to say, this is me, take it or leave it, and let me tell you, the right man, he won't leave it. He'll see you, he'll appreciate you, and he'll keep coming back to you, not because you're trying to impress him, but because being with you feels real. And in a world full of illusions, that's the one thing every man is silently searching for. Relationships aren't built on games, strategies, or surface-level charm. They're built on connection, respect, and genuine energy. Men don't stay where they feel tolerated. They stay where they feel valued, respected, and emotionally safe. They return to the woman who knows how to balance her strength with her softness, her independence with her openness, and her standards with her compassion. You see, the secret isn't in trying to make a man return. It's in becoming the kind of woman he wants to return to. A woman who respects herself, who respects him, who communicates with clarity and warmth, who holds space for his vulnerability, and who knows her worth without compromise. This isn't about changing who you are to fit someone else's expectations. It's about stepping fully into your authentic self and letting that version of you set the tone for the relationship. And here's the truth. The right man doesn't just return to you, he stays, he invests, he builds. Because he sees that you're not just another fleeting connection, you're a woman of substance, of depth, and of unwavering value. So stop chasing. Stop shrinking yourself. Stop bending your standards just to keep someone around. Instead, focus on becoming the kind of woman who radiates confidence, who speaks with love, who respects herself and others, and who carries herself with grace and strength. When you do that, when you show up as your fullest, most authentic self, you don't have to beg for love, respect, or attention. They find you. They choose you. And the right man, he won't just return to you, he'll never want to leave. Because a woman like you isn't just someone to date, she's someone to build a life with. And that, my friend, is the ultimate secret.